You're watching BionicDance. Don't run on automatic, instead, please think.
The only problem I've got with evil is that I need more minions. Let's do this. Hi everybody, BionicDance here. So, first of all, please forgive my appearance and forgive my voice if it's scratchy. I was out at the club kind of late last night. Yeah. So, maybe you remember the video I made regarding the problem of evil, responding to a fellow named David Withen. I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing that correctly, but he made a response to my response, so I'm going to make a response to his response to my response. I hope I got that right. Is that enough responses? Anyway, here we go.
The only video, and I'm not accusing you of this, I think that you did a very good job in your response. I think you were very cordial, and that's why I'm taking the time to respond. If you'd have simply been a jerk, I wouldn't be responding, because I don't do that sort of thing. It doesn't lead to a constructive dialogue, but on that video, though, in those responses, I think it's interesting that that was the only video that received responses that had name-calling, the only video that received responses that had vulgarity, the only video that received responses that were this, kind of overly emotional, irrational junk. I mean, it's interesting if you read through those comments. It's almost like I offended someone's deeply felt and dearly held religious sensibilities.
Well, here's the thing. Here's the problem. I've been on YouTube for about 5-ish years now, maybe 4, I don't know, something like that. And the fact is that in that time I've seen theists come and I've seen them go. And while some of them have been okay, most of them have been royal jack-offs, okay? Look up Venom Fang X someday, and maybe you'll understand. Look up people like Jesus Freak 777. I mean, these have not been the best people in the world. And if you look around the world, speaking of it, look at the Middle East. Look at the way people like homosexuals are being treated by religious people. I'm a lesbian. I've gotten it from time to time. Getting told I'm unnatural, being told I'm not allowed to get married, all of that stuff. Religious people have not exactly treated everyone who doesn't agree with them very well. And so I think we have reason to be angry. And so a lot of YouTube atheists will see, oh, you believe in a God? You must be one of those jack-offs too. I'm not saying I condone that. We're supposed to think instead of running on automatic too. But I'm hoping you can at least understand where some of the anger comes from, even if we don't condone it. I'm just hoping that's something that can be done.
The second thing that I want to say in response to what you just said is that I do indeed understand the classical formulation of the problem of evil. If you had watched those earlier videos, which you admit that you hadn't watched, you would know that I was intentionally using the term the problem of evil to mean something much broader and I think much deeper than just that classical formulation. I can see how that would lead to some confusion given that you hadn't watched the other videos, so I do want to clear that up right now. And so I've relabeled that deeper, broader problem as the title of this video has it, the mystery of evil, or the unsolved mystery of evil, and that is, why is there human suffering? Where does moral evil come from? Is there some kind of justice for moral evil? Is there a meaning to evil? Is there a meaning to human suffering? Is there a meaning to natural evil? This sort of thing. This much deeper, much broader problem that I think the problem of evil in its classical formulation of Epicurus Violactantius arises out of.
Okay, well, first of all, clarification accepted. No problem. Okay, the mystery of evil. Got it. However, here's the thing. There is no mystery. If, in fact, there is no guiding intelligence, no omnibenevolent deity watching over everything, then evil is not a mystery. We live in an unguided universe. Shit happens. Mystery solved.
And the third thing that I want to say here is that I don't think that you did justice to the classical problem of evil either, because I don't think that the conclusion that you're trying to draw from the problem of evil really is that we're able to draw that conclusion, and it's not really what the classical problem of evil states is the conclusion. The classical problem of evil comes from Lactantius, who was an early 4th century Christian philosopher, and he was ostensibly quoting Epicurus, who of course was the earlier Greek philosopher who founded, of course, the philosophy of Epicureanism. And what Epicurus was trying to draw, his conclusion from the problem of evil, is that because God is not all-loving or all-good or all-powerful, he must therefore be insignificant.
Hey look, I've got a kitty. Anyway, here's the thing that, the way you describe the problem of evil, that's not the problem of evil as I understand it. That's not the logical problem of evil that I was taught. And I've got it right here in front of me on Wikipedia. And they start with Epicurus, not this other fellow who frankly I've never heard of. And it's described thusly. 1. If an all-powerful and perfectly good God exists, then evil does not. 2. There is evil in the world. 3. Therefore, an all-powerful and perfectly good God does not exist. It's not that God is insignificant. It's that God does not exist as described. Doesn't mean there can't be another kind of God. I mean, let's face it, Aphrodite, the goddess of love, is not necessarily a goddess that can defeat all evil in the world. So we really are mostly talking about the Abrahamic God here. And the problem of evil definitely exists in this world, therefore the Abrahamic God cannot exist as described by the Abrahamic religions. So that really is the logical problem of evil as I understand it. If you're going to talk about a different problem of evil, well then we are talking past each other. And frankly, it's the Abrahamic God as I see it that's been causing most of the trouble in this world, therefore it's the Abrahamic God that I'm mostly fighting against as an atheist. So that's what I'd really like to discuss personally. If you want to talk about something else, well, I mean, I suppose we can have that philosophical discussion, but it's really not what I want to do. Because mostly what I want to do is neuter religions of power. Make it so that they cannot make their influence felt around the world among people who basically don't want it interfering in their lives. That really is, for me, my mission as an atheist, if I have a mission at all. I mean, if religion wasn't causing problems around the world, I'd probably be making animated videos that have nothing to do with religion. I wouldn't be fighting this fight. But religion is, right now the Abrahamic religion, is making a nuisance of itself, and that's why I make videos. That's why I discuss this topic at all. So, yeah, if you want to talk about a different logical problem of evil, well, I don't know. We'll have to figure that out, whether we even want to have that discussion, because right now I don't.
I think it's interesting here that you use the term Abrahamic religions. Just as in the first part that I responded to, you used the phrase, your God. I think it's interesting on two counts. The first one is that I don't find any indicators. I went back and actually watched the video again. I don't see anything in my video on atheism and the problem of evil that indicates what religion or what philosophy I hold to.
Well, yeah, but I went outside your video for that info. See, if you go to your YouTube profile, you flat out state that you're a Christian.
I think it's interesting that you simply assumed that I am a Christian, or that I am a member of one of the Abrahamic faiths.
Well, aren't you?
Well, I am a Christian, but not in the sense that you would understand that term either.
Elaborate, please.
I also think that it's interesting, again, that you use the term Abrahamic faiths and your God, assuming that I'm a member of an Abrahamic faith in that statement, because the classical statement of the problem of evil, as it comes from Epicurus via Lactantius, does not really address the Abrahamic faiths.
Oh, come now, think about it for a moment. How many other gods are even claimed to be all-knowing, all-loving, and all-powerful besides the Abrahamic God? And plus, the Abrahamic God is the one that seems to be making its influence most felt around the world, especially in a negative way, today. And on your own profile, you do claim to be Christian. And like I say, that's the deity that I prefer to talk about because of that negative influence. So it was a natural assumption to make. You know, if we're not talking about Yahweh or Allah or whatever, then what are we talking about?
Epicurus, of course, would have been completely unfamiliar. He may have known about Judaism, perhaps, in some very early form of it, but...
But by your own admission, Epicurus is not the only one to have come up with the logical problem of evil, and certainly it's been updated as time goes on. So to use Epicurus as the sole judge of it when we're discussing the logical problem of evil, I think that's frankly cheating. Just saying.
Well, it's all hogwash, kind of like an atheist asking the question of the problem of evil in the first place, which was kind of the point that I was trying to make when I said heaps more of the problem of evil upon him or herself, because you can't even ask the question. If you don't believe that there's such a thing as good and evil, except for in this very subjective, I like vanilla ice cream, you like strawberry ice cream kind of sense, then you can't even ask the question.
Ah, but you see, I don't ask the question of the problem of evil because I actually am curious about the answer. No, I'm an atheist. I think we live in an unguided universe, and like I said before, shit happens. But the theist claims that we live in a guided universe, one guided by an all-loving, all-knowing, all-powerful deity who should be taking care of evil, but who apparently either can't or doesn't, and is thus either not all-powerful or not all-loving. And therefore, the theist has some splainin' to do. I ask the question of the problem of evil because it's not a problem for me, it's a problem for the theist. I ask the question to point out the flaw in your philosophy.
Now, if you want to have a discussion about why I hold the beliefs that I hold, why I, hold the philosophy that I hold, then that's something that we can do. But of course, I have to explain what that is before we can do that. But again, it's not pertinent to the video that I made in this particular case.
Oh, but I think that it does. What you believe matters greatly to whether or not you believe evil exists in the first place. I don't think evil exists at all, except as a subjective judgment call. Other people believe that evil is something objective, that it doesn't depend on our personal preferences or opinions in the slightest, that evil is something that exists in this world as a force. What you believe depends greatly on this mystery of evil. Oh, yes, it does.
I do think that you were very cordial, very articulate, and very intelligent in offering this very cogent response to my video, and I really do appreciate that. Generally, the responses that I get, especially from atheists, are of the lowest possible quality that a human being can produce, which is rather saddening to see, because it would be interesting, and it is interesting, to find people of very different positions to engage and to have these kinds of discussion with. That's really why I do YouTube videos at all, is that I enjoy discussing this sort of thing with those who agree with me and, of course, those who disagree with me.
Well, like I said before, a lot of atheists are quite angry, and I think with good reason. I'm not saying it necessarily excuses some of the behavior that, yes, even I have engaged in, but the fact is that we do have good reason to look at the behavior of the religious and say, you people are slime and scum and you need to knock it the hell off. We do have a lot of history and even recent events to point to say, you know what, you God botherers really, really, really need to knock it off. We do. So, just saying. But regardless, I'd like to continue our rational and reasonable dialogue as best I can, because for right now at least, it's been, well, interesting, to say the least. Even though we are talking past each other a little bit, I've been kind of enjoying the more philosophical discussion rather than rawr, you know? Just saying.
There you go, asking me to prove it again, and as I already said, I'm not going to prove it. I can't prove it, and I have no desire to prove it. It's simply incompatible with my philosophy to try to prove it.
Well, it goes against my philosophy to believe it unless it's proved. So where do we go from here?
That being said, however, I would posit that this thing that we're referring to is, if not provable, is necessary.
Well, the it we're talking about right now is objective morality. And not only do I not think that it's necessary, but I also don't think that it can exist. I think that it's impossible. You see, well, here's part of the problem. When people talk about objective versus subjective, they don't necessarily mean the same thing as other people. I mean, I've noticed a lot of the time when people say that something is objective, what they really seem to be saying is that it means a lot to them, that it's really, really important, where subjective is only kinda, sorta. It's kind of the way where a lot of people will sometimes say literally, as opposed to figuratively, where what they're really trying to do is to emphasize something, where it wasn't actually literal, where it may actually have been completely figurative, but they want to say they really, really mean it. I've noticed people do that, and they do it with objective too. But when I say objective, what I mean is that it is something that cannot exist without, or something that will exist without thinking, feeling, rational beings. That if it's objective, it does not require people with psyches to think it up. That it will be there. Generally speaking, something that's objective will be an object. I mean, it's very rare that concepts are objective. They do exist, but they're pretty rare. And I do not think that morality is one of them. I do not think that morality can be one of them. Because morality is, in and of itself, values. And values are, in and of themselves, subjective preferences. I value nonviolence. You value being stalwart. You know, all of this stuff. Morals are values. They're feelings. You cannot have an objective value or feeling. It just can't exist. So when you say that objective morality is necessary, I can't be on board with you there. And they're also not necessary. I mean, take a look at laws, for example. As I see it, laws are in fact morals that have been codified by people and agreed upon. I mean, there's a difference between an objective moral and a universal moral. I think that universal morals are generally agreed upon by the vast majority of people, even though there are some who will violate them or don't agree with them at all, that kind of thing. But they're fairly commonly agreed upon. And that's what laws tend to be. I mean, you know, thou shalt not murder. Well, we put that down in law form, and people agree with it. That is a subjective moral that we've all agreed upon. It's not necessary to be objective. It may be a necessary universal, but it's not objective. If everyone were gone, well, it wouldn't be necessary in the least, and it also wouldn't exist. So, and thou shalt not steal. Again, we put that down in law form. We don't need it in this religious form, and we certainly don't need it in this claimed to be objective form. It's just something where we say stealing is bad. It hurts people. We don't like to hurt, and so we say you shouldn't steal. And if you're going to, we're going to punish you in this way, and we've all agreed upon it. We've codified it into law. That's a subjective moral, not objective. And yeah, I would say that subjective morals are necessary. Or at the very least, they certainly help out. But they're not objective. And objective morals, well, again, don't exist, not necessary.
And I won't use the term God here because I think that the term God will lead to too much confusion in a conversation like this where there's such a great chasm between my belief system and yours. I think that a term that could lead us to greater clarity is the term Tao, to draw upon Chinese philosophy for that term. And by the term Tao, I mean that which is transcendent and yet immanent, and this objective, we might say force entity or personality, who is being itself and which is the governing principle of the cosmos. So that's what I mean when I say the term Tao.
Well, as much as I'm a Star Wars fan, I'm sorry, I don't believe the Force exists. So, I don't buy it. I don't. This is another case of you're going to have to prove it to me before I even accept this concept. Really.
And I wouldn't say the term, or I wouldn't say that this thing, that this Tao is provable, but that it is necessary.
Well, I'm sorry, but I can't buy it. I really don't think it's necessary to have some sort of grand oversoul ruling the universe. That doesn't make sense to me. And if you're going to claim one exists, yes, you do have to prove it. Otherwise, I'm sorry, but I see the universe functioning just fine without it. So, unless you can prove it, well, we're at an impasse.
Because he saw that we needed something transcendent, we needed something eternal. Otherwise, we fall inevitably into the trap of nihilism.
What's so wrong with nihilism? Life has no intrinsic meaning. We give it meaning ourselves. What's so wrong with that? I don't see that as a trap at all. I mean, okay, we may not have intrinsic value. That may be depressing. That may be difficult. Cope. I mean, come on. What are we, children who need to be handheld? We need something eternal to look up to? Come on, get over it.
Please correct me if I'm wrong, if I'm coming from false assumptions about what it is that you're saying, but it seems to me that the entirety of this question or this argument disappears if we don't posit God as a being. If we posit instead that being in itself, that which is transcendent to the dichotomy of essence and existence, is God, to use that terminology, I think that question disappears entirely. I think that it's dependent upon God as a being rather than God as being.
Well, whether you've understood me or not, and whether you've redefined the nature of God or not, it doesn't matter. Because we're still talking about objective morality. And objective morality is, in and of itself, a contradiction in terms. Because morals are opinions or values about behavior or thoughts. Or even just opinions about values, or how much we value a value, or any of that. It's all about opinion and perspective, which is inherently subjective. In fact, that's nearly the definition of subjective in and of itself. Objective morality cannot exist, no matter what. I mean, if this sort of like oversoul, God is being thing existed, it would need to have a consciousness in order for morality to exist as an aspect of itself. And thus, that morality would be subjective, because it would be that God's opinion. If God were just being in and of itself, morality could not exist, because existence itself cannot have an opinion or a value. It's not possible. So, objective morality is in and of itself a contradiction in terms, and so unless God is a deity, unless God is a magical sky fairy as opposed to the Force, I'm sorry, you can't have objective morality. Not possible. You have to have subjective morality or no morality. That's that.
Now, it seems to me that in this case you're trying to both have your cake and eat it too, and that's why I showed those two clips together without my own thoughts in between them, is that in the first clip you seem to be arguing that morality is emotion and is entirely objective, whereas in the second clip you seem to be arguing that a person's belief should be rooted entirely in logic, and that logic is entirely objective.
I have done well over 24 drafts of this, some of them angry, some of them very calm and rational, but the point is that what you've just done comes off like a dishonest gotcha game. It comes off like you are trying to say, aha, look at that, you've contradicted yourself, and I haven't. What you've done is conflated two things I've said that are entirely unrelated to each other, and you've taken one of those and extrapolated it far beyond itself. You see, when I was talking about the logical problem of evil, I was talking about the logical problem of evil. I was not saying everybody's beliefs ought to be logical. I'm saying when we look at something that is talking about, well, here is a claim, and then here is something that contradicts it, therefore the claim is contradicted and probably false. I'm saying let's look at that logically and reasonably because it is a logical problem. I'm not saying everything has to be handled 100% logically. And that, you saying that I'm saying that, is dishonest. And then taking that dishonest expansion of me talking about a logical problem and you expanding that to me saying everything ought to be logical, and then me talking about the emotional qualities of morality, and you saying, well, that contradicts you're saying that everything has to be logical, that beliefs, and I never even used the term beliefs when I was talking about this logical proof, this logical problem. You telling me that, well, you saying beliefs ought to be logical, now here you are saying that these beliefs are emotional. You've contradicted yourself. I've gotcha. That's just fucking dishonest, dude. It really is. And it's that kind of behavior that we atheists have seen from theists all over the place. It's why you saw all that invective and vitriol and name-calling and shit on your comment section, because that's the kind of behavior we see from religious people all over the place. And it pisses us off. I've been doing this for years. Do you know how many times people have tried to pull that shit on me? Seriously. And now here's you doing it. And I thought you were more reasonable than that. And it makes me not want to talk to you ever again. So if you do that again, seriously, we're done. I'm just done talking to you. I hope you've learned a lesson here. Don't ever pull that crap ever again.
You also, I think, are wrong in trying to posit this almost dichotomous nature in man. That's what you seem to be doing here, where logic is set aside from emotion on the other side. On the contrary, I think that in determining what to believe and what to do, it takes the whole man. Our emotions color our logic colors our emotion. You can't separate the two, and again, certainly there's no appeal to objectivity.
While I do in fact agree that we can only ever be subjective, I do think that we can at least do our best to make our perspective be as unbiased as possible. I mean, this is why science has things like peer review, for example. So, logic is at least an attempt to be as objective as possible. I know we can never succeed, but we can get awfully close.
Everything is subjectivity. Everything is individual, and that's why I've expressed this disdain for trying to prove my beliefs to you, because I don't think that it's possible, and nor do I think that it's desirable to do so.
Well, I'm sorry, but that is quite the cop-out. Because religion inevitably comes with dogma, and dogma inevitably comes with values and rules, instructions on how to live your life. And when people say, I'm not going to conform to that, well, religion almost inevitably has instructions on how to bring those people in line. It says that they're the infidel, that they're the evil ones, that they must be either brought in line or destroyed. I mean, look at the conflicts around this world, even just among people of different religions, never mind with atheists, with non-believers. Can you not understand why I might demand you prove your God is real before I decide to join up? Can you really not understand why if you say you won't prove your God is real, it might make me just a smidge cranky? And maybe you're a bit more tolerant than those other people around the world, but you're not the only one who has a religion. And as I pointed out, there are some big old conflicts around this planet, all based on believing in a magical sky fairy. And they won't prove that he's even real. Seriously, do you not understand why atheists are angry? Really? 'Cause you gotta prove it. You have to. Otherwise, well, we're gonna have issues.
Much like your question about objective morality, I've never received an answer to this question from an atheist that didn't involve a whole lot of hemming and hawing and changing the definition of words. In other words, I've never received a straight answer to this question. Upon what basis are we to choose the biological functions that we call empathy, compassion, love, etc., over the biological functions that we call hate, anger, lust, and murder? Upon what basis do we make that determination?
What, you mean beyond personal preferences? There's no objective standard. If it feels good, you do it. If it feels bad, you don't. If other people object, they'll stop you. That's the only standard that exists. Now, granted, I know some people who absolutely love their pain. I got friends in the BDSM community. If it feels good to them, they do it. If it feels bad, they don't. I don't dig it, but hey, whatever floats your ducky, I say. You know, as long as nobody involved objects, have at, you know? But if you're looking for an objective standard, one that exists beyond the human brain, well, you're not going to find it. You might find some universals where almost everybody agrees on it, but not absolutely everybody. It won't be there, because it doesn't exist. Now, you'll find a lot of survival traits, you know, things that science can point to and say, well, they're doing this because, you know, the ones that didn't survive long enough to reproduce, and therefore they died out, and that trait didn't continue. But other than that, you're not going to find a standard. No, not really. Not the kind I think you're looking for. Doesn't exist.
Alright, well that ends my response video to BionicDance's video. As always, I thank you very much for watching, and I look forward to reading your comment.
And until next time, fellow space travelers, don't run on automatic. Instead, please thank Kitty. Please take the time to rate this video. And hey, if you dig what I do, subscribe. And please visit my Zazzle store, where you'll find all kinds of BionicDance merchandise. Not rating and subscribing has been found to cause obesity, acne, and male pattern baldness in laboratory rats.